on a human victory, or what achievements really consist of. It's doing what you wanted, but only hoped for, and maybe you wanted more than you hoped for, and maybe you expected deep down the sound of total victory, and anything else for a while seems like less, and maybe even feels like a failure of the deepest of all. But in truth, a total victory just ain't what humans are about, when human is what we're about, because a total anything is a pyrrhic everything. And so I begin to warm to you finally, and the idea that without writing a single line of code, I have convinced one of the biggest organizations in tech, and those companies that work alongside them true, that just my words and terms of English have been enough to show how a new world exists right out there, and that it's no longer on my part a failure of the worst in any shape whatsoever, nor a loss of the least, to propose that I might accept working with disruption of this nature, primarily because the culture of the big and the small, in this case, become us as one and the same and the one, since both of us converging separately anon have arrived at conclusions of parallel lines, where arguments cogently strung together on 2 pages of simple A4, eschewing as we do the fancy graphics of say what you're going to say, and then say it, and then summarize it. And where, in fact, the bullets pointedly hit the marks of zero innovation, and even less invention. Because to follow these paths so well trodden, so religiously I mean, is to die a death of 1,000 mutts, as dog days encroach and shroud our thinking. For it's time once again to move well on from the old man's valley, where even the youngest entrepreneur finds themselves trained up in the fuddy-duddy of the mere tweaking of tech, so no one may rock the boats of existing portfolios, nor business models galore, but actually hoary as hell. Because it's time the bells of brand new relationships, consecrated on firm and financially win-win terms, begin to bring to the world the teams and reams of the Gutenberg of intuitive thinking. The printing press of irrationality, changing the way we do technology much more easily, and being as there's no better way to do this than working back from the customer always, in combination with a new lean that reasons with care and compassion and rationales of the very best to the very, very maximum, how to extract the truths no one says, but everyone knows full well, and all too well, and as well as the next, as we lie at night suffering the lies that tie the world up in knots, and which have blotted our futures as they are held by their throats, gory and cruel as the fossil fuels they freely promote even now, by those who care only for planets outside and little for the one we all grew up on. And here I mean all of us, and how I mean it's clearly seen, and how it's been, because this is it, I say. Well time we found amongst the rich and poor the course that aligns our interests both, and so nothing better than a brand new process that unleashes our humanity as never before. And so I'm ready to see what's next, not as failure for another, nor for me or them, nor total victory for me or another, nor us as we might see ourselves, nor even as the outputs of the lyricists of ancient harps, as they start to sing again out loud and proudly, but rather, quite instead, a victory of the grandest for a good citizenry, wishing to bring about a humanity of the brightest by simply enabling our gut feeling and intuitive ingenuities in ways we never imagined ever. This is what it is then, this text I write, as I send this poem to the people who know much better than me what's happening on the inside out, and how this will affect the outside in. And so, from me, as this, just as a missive of my final conformity, and my capacity to embrace you now, those of you who know, and how you do, in my full cognizance of the scientific and evidence-based realities which, burnished anew, will renew and repair the horrors these warlike peoples have visited on the rest of us without qualms, where to date only psalms are able for now to protect us with their prayers and beseechings and readings of the sacred stones and the rites that serve strangely to right our wrongs. Because whatever happens now, the killing field will be levelled, and new lean will become the tool we use, shining as we will, for sure, to release as we must and should, and ought to, and would have, many, many decades ago, if only we had cared to listen to the equally sacred understandings in tow, which we blithely ignored as stupidly tawdry attempts to go beyond making easy money and actually solving problems, which weren't just making more money, it's true, in manners, quite ill-mannered and foolish and unkind, as we rewound to the past, even as our tech is of now, and even as we chose firmly to screw the world for everything we could scrape and make ours to the exclusion of a legacy we just didn't want to make at all free, in any way whatsoever. And so now all these changes, as I approach the companies which, working together in common cultural dissonance and rub, with different ideas yet common outcomes even so, and uncommon sensibilities in beautiful consonances, for these are the resonances which, enriching, now demand we hand over to each other our destinies, not as passive fates, too late to the party to do anything wise, but instead to a common goal that shall be that of rescuing our species from its long-term idiocies, by tapping into that fabulous skill set and virtue present all this goddamn time, the intuition of a humankind multiplied up 1 billion times and more, being you and you and you and you and me and her and thee and tree, and us all seeing clearly anew, as if never before, ever before, this all being, our shared future present collective fate, awaiting us all from now on in, and no longer too late, to the party I mentioned. Because that party is the citizenry we will fully reconstitute, not as brutal future robots of silicon, but just sentient human beings, achieving the total victories of me and you, no longer gone.